Okay, is it just me, or does this look suspiciously like a massive bone? Great serpent confirmed. Hello, and in this video, I'm going through the new Shattered Space gameplay to detail everything you might have missed. Things like this bone. Could this possibly have come from the mythical great serpents the Varuun worship? To me, this kind of looks like the jawbone of a huge snake and has a bit of an H.R. Geiger style to it, but we don't really have anything in the foreground to give us perspective, so it is hard to tell the true scale of this thing. Pun definitely intended. But why would Bethesda throw in a 2-second shot of a random alien bone? I think this is them hinting that the great serpent is real, or to be more accurate, was real. I think this looks like a place of worship and possibly where the Varuun leaders come to communicate with the great serpent. Not physically, but spiritually, a bit like praying. So we won't get to meet the great serpent and have a fight with it, but we will be learning a whole lot more about this fascinating belief in the great serpent. Something we will be having a fight with, however, are the new enemies, who we also got a better look at in the new gameplay. One of these is a very cool Varuun enemy in a bulky exosuit with blades on their arms, and I cannot wait to take on these bad boys. The devs have said they've wanted to go in a different direction for the combat this time. Whereas the base game is all about medium to long range encounters, in Shattered Space, it's up close and personal. But I don't take this to mean we're getting an overhauled combat system, so don't expect to see dismemberment, slow motion, or even new melee animations. We're basically just going to be facing off against more aggressive enemies, like the exosuit dude. Berserker behaviors like this one do exist in the base game, so this isn't really new, but I do think we'll at least get some new melee weapons to use against them. One weapon we see in the new gameplay is the Varuun Painblade, which again isn't new, so I think Bethesda is hiding the new loot for us to discover for ourselves. And a lot of these, I think, are going to be new melee weapons. Another new enemy we could potentially encounter in Shattered Space is a mech. Mechs don't exist in the base game, not active ones anyway, because all of the factions agreed to ban them. The reason for that is they're basically like weapons of mass destruction and they are too powerful to exist. But the Varuun didn't sign that agreement, so they are more than allowed to unleash the mechs. Now, there's no evidence these exist in Shattered Space, but if Bethesda really wanted to give us a surprise, they would have a mech or two as a massive end of quest showpiece. Maybe even let us pilot one, go on. But saying that might be going slightly too far. Another new enemy is the Cavern Bone Crest Queen. This is a level 50 enemy who you encounter in a cave and seems to be part of the native alien wildlife. The combat here looks a bit like Starship Troopers as you face off against waves of creatures in the dark. Not only is there the queen, but regular bone crests as well, and also something called a bone crest spitter, who, of course, spits toxic goo at you. This one is level 40, so yeah, you will have to level up a healthy amount to stay ahead of the game. Although you won't have to be near the end game to access Shattered Space, and the reason I say this is because we see another enemy type in the gameplay, and this is only level 20. We see a bunch of level 20 Varuun Zealots, so I think this gives us a good indicator as to what level we'll need to be to match them, which is level 20. And speaking of the Varuun Zealots, check out their armor. This looks entirely new from any armor we've seen before, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to loot this. The bulkier exosuit enemies probably not, but the regular Zealots more than likely. At one point in the trailer, we also see a goods exchange, which is a vendor you're going to be able to go to for new weapons and gear. And you know what? That is going to be the first place I head to when I download Shattered Space. I love seeing new equipment, especially new armor and clothes to customize my character with, and hopefully Shattered Space delivers on this front. I feel like I've seen literally every gear piece in Starfield now, so I'm definitely looking forward to something new, and it doesn't even have to be military focused. Give me a casual outfit I can just walk around in, because ultimately this DLC is all about joining the Varuun and converting to their religion. So let me go the whole way and fully immerse myself with a tasteful pair of Varuun jeans. On the subject of new gear, check this out. Our first look at the new grenade types, and this is the Gravity Grenade. It seems to function like the anti-gravity Starborn power, which suspends enemies in midair, but I guess having it on the grenade button frees up one of your starborn powers, so although it looks similar to an existing power, it's good to have this on a separate button. That's because you could use this to synergize with your starborn powers, as you won't have to wait for them to cool down. And one of the ways you could probably do this is by throwing an anti-gravity grenade to suspend enemies in mid-air, then using the gravity wave starborn power to blast them back. There's also a split-second look at the shockwave grenade. At least I think that's a shockwave grenade. They don't actually name it, but we see the player throw a grenade that emits a glowing ring of blue lights, which is interesting and would definitely help with crowd control against all of the alien bugs. The devs say there are several new grenades in Shattered Space, not just these, and you can both purchase them and craft them at a crafting table. So it will be a case of harvesting the necessary resources and making a batch of these new grenades. Firearm-wise, we get a good look at something called a Varuun Starstorm. This is a handheld Gatling gun and it looks absolutely devastating. It seems to emit this bright blue laser thing, but I don't think it's a laser at all. I think this is the power of pure gravity. That's because it seems to have the same color scheme as the gravitational anomalies we see elsewhere in the trailer, so it's this weird sort of gravity energy. Maybe it's extra effective against the enemies who emerge from the tears in space-time, the vortex horrors, so when these come out, it's time to use the Varuun Starstorm. And a final weapon I am hopeful of being able to use is this turret. We see it being deployed to fend off a wave of aliens, so it's not entirely clear if this is a scripted set piece or if you're able to use this yourself, but it would be cool to use these new turrets in your arsenal. If that doesn't happen, an alternative theory is that these turrets could also be used in your outpost. We've heard nothing about outposts in Shattered Space, but if it's anything like the base game, you will almost certainly be able to build them on the planet of Varuun Kai. This is a full-size Starfall planet after all, and if this is the case, it's very exciting because how good would it be to build a base on a world as unique as this one? It wouldn't look like any other outpost. Maybe you could build your outpost on a hill overlooking the Varuun capital and just have a great view of all the citizens going about their day. Or build it on a completely different side of the planet among a bunch of weird aliens. We do get a look at a few of the open areas outside the city with landing pads, and I also spotted a Chunks logo, which to me says a lot of the areas are handcrafted. Bethesda has said that, but one look at this Chunks logo, and that just confirms it. As far as I know, Chunks is not part of the randomly generated pool. And lastly, a quick overview of the story to cover anything you might have missed. So as you know, a gravitational anomaly has swallowed a significant portion of capital. Now, some players are a bit annoyed about this because it means you won't get to explore the entire city, but to me, this is a bad take. Bethesda only had a year to make this, and they're not going to be able to make an entire GTA-sized city in 1 year. Plus the surrounding landscape as well, so they've had to come up with a reason why it's limited in some way. Because also, if they didn't, then the Varuun capital would be tiny, and you wouldn't be able to believe this is the capital of the Varuun people. So yeah, I can understand why Bethesda had to come up with a story explanation for why the actual explorable area isn't huge, but they've also repeatedly said it's handcrafted, so this will be the classic small but dense urban sandbox with things to find around every corner. Anyway, you arrive a few weeks after the rift opens up, with the tragedy still fresh in everyone's minds. There's a massive crater in the city, and the seat of power is now cut off from everyone else. This seat of power is called the Scaled Citadel, and it's trapped in a strange field of blue energy. Loads of people are missing, the most important being Inasco Varuun, the leader of House Varuun, and apparently someone who can communicate with the Great Serpent, if it exists. Mine houses are now all vying against each other to be the new leader and racing to fill the power vacuum. That includes the Zealots, who are now demanding credits from the people and a seat at the table. And what excites me most about the story is the decisions you will get to make. Apparently, you'll decide the fate of House Varuun, and your choice will have a bearing on what happens in the settled systems. Now, this has massive implications. Does this mean the outcome of the DLC actually affects the base game? I'm not too sure, but even if it's just a few new voice lines added in, voice lines to show NPCs being aware of your exploits, that would be amazing. Just these kind of subtle shifts to show you're having an impact in the world after completing the DLC, that is what we want. And even if nothing really changes in the base game, you can bet your choices in Shattered Space will matter in the next DLC, when Bethesda can build on them, as Bethesda could potentially build on any choices you make. We do know there are no faction quest lines in Shattered Space because there aren't any achievements for faction quest lines. The full list of achievements is now out, so we know that for sure. But there will definitely be multiple ways to complete this DLC, with my prediction being you can either return the Varuun homeworld to the status quo and help the government back into power, or help the Zealots seize power. And I know what I'm going to pick. The Zealots. I'm going to pick the Zealots. So that ends this video. As ever, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then subscribe to the channel because you will get loads more Starfield videos. I simply cannot stop. But I'm going to sign off. Have a very nice rest of your day.